Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of NAP News Now. My name is Elisa Tagg, and I am the Association Director with the National Association of Activity Professionals. I'm super excited to be with you once again this week. To have our special guest is Nikki Jardin from Mirador magazine. Hi, Nikki. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. And we've learned a lot about Mirador, at least I have. And so I think it's super exciting to be able to share this with our audience today and to learn a little bit more about you, about Mirador, and how we can all get to know it even better. So let's just start right there at the top and let's talk a little bit about who you are, and then tell us a little bit more about your background and how you came about.
Okay. So yeah, my name's Nikki Jardin. I live in Portland, Oregon at the moment anyway. I'm from the West Coast region. So my background's pretty varied. I do come from a publishing family. So my mom was a columnist for a local newspaper. My stepfather was a photographer for the AP. They also created a trade newspaper for their business. This is, you know, 1,000 years ago, back when we actually laid it out on strips of copy. I don't even remember what it's called anymore, but I remember doing it, in the
The
thing.
typesetting, right?
The
Wasn't that
types,
was that
yeah,
the
the
typesetting?
typesetting
Yeah.
and the actual cutting and pasting. So I worked on that as a, young 20 something year old, working on the classifieds and that kind of thing. So we are a big magazine family, a big newspaper family. And so I've always had a love for writing and for reading. I was a freelance writer for about 7 years or so, doing some internet stuff, doing a few magazines, doing some newspaper. I worked on a local, I was a managing editor for a local newspaper or local, excuse me, magazine here in the Portland area called Spot Magazine. It was a pet magazine. So I did that for a few years and wrote for that. And it was a lot of fun. And, in between all that, I've done lots of other stuff. I've done some volunteering. I've worked for a lot of nonprofits, and I was a US postal carrier for a while, just like drips and drabs over the years. So
I
so
love that. I love to hear about your background too in the publishing industry, just because we have seen, publishing evolve very much, in the last few years, especially. And now you're working as the publisher, promoter, author, everything of Mirador magazine. And so tell us, how did your journey begin with Mirador, and how did you make the decision to publish Mirador?
So back in 2017, 2018, I have an aunt who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. She was 62 at the time.
Mm.
And I was the closest family to her. She was living in the Seattle area, um, and ended up becoming one of her primary, I don't want to say caregivers. I did not live with her, but I helped her through this journey of hers. She's in memory care now and doing well in memory care. But as we were kind of navigating this journey together, one of the things I was noticing when I was spending time with her was that she always loved to read. In fact, she also worked on a conservation magazine in her life as an editor and a researcher. So I know she always loved to read. She was always carrying magazines around like Nat Geo and conservation and, those sorts of things. But I was noticing that she wasn't really interacting with them as her disease progressed. She'd carry them around. Um, she'd ask me sometimes to read for her. She would sort of flip through, but she wasn't really, and they were the same magazines on it. I would see her on, several times a week, and she was constantly carrying the same around, even though we had subscriptions to several magazines for her. Um, I had started watching Teepa Snow. This is kind of, I jump around a little bit. So I'd watched Teepa Snow videos. I'd gone to a couple of her seminars. And one of the things that struck me through those was that as a dementia diagnosis progresses, the visual acuity becomes impaired fairly quickly. And so it occurred to me that perhaps my aunt was just not able to read this tiny print that was in these magazines and in these newspapers anymore. And so I went to the internet and I started searching for magazines for people with cognitive illnesses, magazines for people with dementia. periodicals for people with Alzheimer's, books for people with Alzheimer's. And I was stunned actually to find not a lot available. Given that it's such a huge population, why wasn't this resource available for, in multiple different forms? So as I told you, I do have a magazine writing background. And so it was a natural fit for me to think about creating a leisure-oriented magazine for people experiencing cognitive change. So I didn't necessarily want it to be a wellness magazine. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not really what my aunt would have wanted. Something that had stories, some activities, just general, actually not even really having anything to do with dementia, just stories that were formatted in a way that were more visually accessible. And so that's sort of how that came to be. And like I said, I'm a writer. I am not a graphics person. One of the things that I really wanted this magazine to do would be to look beautiful, to be engaging. So if you had a hard time even reading at any level, maybe just imagery was going to be something that you could access. I wanted it to be gorgeous. And so I was fortunate to have the help of a dear friend and ended up becoming a co-founder of Mirador, my friend Tave Fache Drake, who has some graphics experience, some advertising experience, and really came in and helped me put it together. The way it looks now, is between Tave and our graphic designer, Ty Juncker. We took it out, we took it to various care facilities and people that had experience with people experiencing dementia to kind of just really help us go all the way through it. So that's the long and short of it.
Well, no, Nikki, I think it's fascinating that your journey begins with a family member, a loved one experiencing dementia. And what I value so much with what you just said, Nikki, was that you took the time to learn more about the diagnoses, and you took the time to learn on, like Teepa Snow's positive approaches, that you learned how to engage with somebody with Alzheimer's rather than just trying to rely on yourself, which a lot of our caregivers sadly do, is that they don't understand the illness. And I can tell you just from personal experience, as we work with aging populations, it's challenging to put what you learn into practice, especially with somebody whom you love. And so I think that can be really, really difficult for a lot of people. But I love what you've done to create something that you knew your aunt would absolutely love. You knew about her background. You knew about what her likes and dislikes were. You knew what her preferences were. And so you've taken this. And the neat thing is there's going to be so many other individuals out there that are living with dementia that have similar preferences and likes and enjoyment of reading magazines. I know that I'm a magazine reader still. I'm kind of on that cusp of being full technology. I don't like a tablet. I don't read on a tablet. I like it in my hand. So I appreciate the value in that. And you made a couple of comments, with your co-founder, about how you make Mirador a little bit different than other, like, reminiscing magazines that are out there. And so share just a little bit more with us what makes your magazine unique and special.
So that's a great question. And we did do a lot of research on, and this is still developing. We're still learning, right? Because we're still learning about the diagnosis. And, as we know, Alzheimer's isn't outside, there are so many different ways that people have a cognitive illness. And so everybody's going to approach it a little bit differently. We also have in our audience too, people that are recovering from stroke, or people that have a spectrum disorder. That's something that they also seem to enjoy the magazine with because of its simplicity. So one of the things that we learned about was simplicity, to keep the pages as simple as possible. We wanted them to be engaging, but one of the things that we kept hearing was a super busy page is going to be difficult for somebody to really zero in on. So the first thing we did obviously was we bumped the font way up. So it's at a 14 typeface, which is about as big as we've tried different ones. At 14 seemed to be the sweet spot there. We don't have columns, so I can actually just kind of show you a little bit.
Yeah.
So in our magazine, and we're, like I said, so it's hard to see a little bit, but so we don't have columns that run straight through. The text runs straight across, right?
Love
And
it.
so that's helpful. We don't have a lot of busyness on
Yeah.
the page. We have larger images like that. So
Love it.
that's one thing that we do. Even the images themselves, we try not to keep them super busy. And, you know, I think we do a pretty good job of that. We also, so no columns, larger typeface, try not to keep a bunch of stuff all around the page. So try to even block them out a little bit, block out the what am I trying to say? The paragraphs sometimes
Mm,
also just get sort of blocked out. For example, we always have a section here. So like there's blocks
I love it.
here so that you can kind of focus in. All of our pages or all of our stories are short. They're all under 250 words. So some of them, we have little chunklets, you know, they're like 50-word chunks. Nothing runs from page to page. It all runs on one, either, you know, there's no like a sentence starts here and goes to the next page, or a story starts here and goes to page 70, you know, it's
Yeah.
all, it's not a 70-page book, it's 32, but you know what I mean? So it doesn't,
Yeah, you're right.
you,
It's
so
consistent. It's consistent.
it is consistent, yeah. So
Yeah.
those are some of the ways. And I said we are still learning. And one of the things that's been great over the last year and a half, we've just published our 7th magazine. Is that now we're starting to hear from people like activity professionals, like individuals who have people at home that are enjoying the magazine. So we're getting more feedback from them about how we can make it even more accessible and more resourceful, a better resource.
I think Nick, evidence-based right there is what you're doing,
Yes,
is you're taking the
absolutely.
research that you've done and you're taking the feedback that you're receiving and you're improving on it. I wanted to pick up that magazine one more time. I think it was the last cover where you were talking about mushrooms.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, so kind of go there just really quickly, just to kind of give us an example. So it looks like you're talking about 4 or 5 different mushrooms there on the one page, but then on the other page you have like a recipe, right?
Yeah,
Is that what I saw?
we always have a recipe. So in the magazine, yeah, there's always a recipe. We try to make
Super
it
cool.
also that things can people, and the recipes are simple. This one is for this is one of Tave. So Tave also has a podcast called Peace, Love, and Soup, and so this is one of their recipes for dry sautéed mushrooms. It's super simple, you know.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot, you know, all of our recipes are very simple, something you can do with a care partner, with your mom. In this next issue in volume 7, we have a reader whose mother was a home ec cook,
Mm,
loved cooking, but her dementia diagnosis was hard for her to follow recipes. And so they have taken, so she stopped cooking, which was a drag for her. So her daughter, they do a Sunday supper. And so they spend the day, they go to the farmer's market or they go to the store, they pick out a few ingredients, and then the daughter becomes, Sarah becomes the sous chef, and Nancy, the mother. And so they just kind of do this nice Sunday supper together. So she has a recipe in this next magazine that they shared with us. So yeah, so we have a recipe. We always also on the back have a travel piece, which is, this one is tree houses.
very
So
cool.
there's that. And then we have a postcard craft so that you can like write a postcard if you want. So yeah, we try to keep it pretty varied. Some, you know, 2 or 3 short features about history, or a nostalgia piece about like a dune buggy or something like that. And then we always have and then, you know, for y'all, we always have activities. So we have simple, like this is a simple crossword puzzle. There's a coloring page. There is a simple word search, object find. We do these ourselves. Like these are so much fun. Like we take these photographs and put them together ourselves, and then a spot the difference kind of thing.
Very fun. So it's very nature minded. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us what does Mirador mean and how did you come up with the name? I know that's not one of the things, but I'm curious, just to hear it a little bit
Yeah,
more.
we get asked that a lot actually, which is funny when yeah, it's just funny that it gets asked. Why wouldn't it? But so Mirador, it means in Spanish, it means like a lighthouse, a beacon, a vista. As you can see, there's kind of a little lighthouse here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of nuts for lighthouses. They're kind of my own personal totem. I didn't want to call the magazine Lighthouse. It just didn't feel right to me. And I wanted to come up with something a little bit different. And so I thought to use the Spanish word. So I have another aunt, she's passed now, my Aunt Sharon, who cared for my grandmother also had Alzheimer's, and Sharon cared for my grandmother for a decade, and passed really close to my other aunt's diagnosis.
Mm.
And Sharon was a big genealogy buff and really was getting into our Mexican and Spanish history. And she had been a lifelong Spanish speaker also. And so this is sort of a nod to her also. So thinking about
Love that Mirador and the lighthouse. I mean, it is like you're lighting the way, with having engagement in a different manner, which so many individuals still desire to learn in. I think magazines are a very, like I said, people still read them. I look at the tabloids at the checkout line at the grocery store just like anybody else. And I think that purchasing magazines is still a favorite pastime of many people, to have those delivered and to read. And you've captured that beautifully in this Mirador magazine. So how can our professionals learn more then? How can we get to know Mirador better?
So our website is miradormagazine.com, and we have some sample issues we have digital. So all of our magazines are in print. Obviously, that's super important. They're also available as a digital subscription. If you subscribe, you get access to all the digital library. But online, we have volume 1, which has a big lighthouse on it. Is free. You can read it at any time. There are also some downloadable activities there that people can kind of see. And then there's sample issues. I think they're 8-page samples of all of our issues. So you can check that out. One thing I wanted to note and again, we're trying to continue to make this a great resource for individuals and care partners and activity folks like yourself. So with your subscription, you will always get downloadable. All the activities will be in a downloadable PDF for people.
Nice.
So that you can download them and redo them as many times as somebody wants to. So if they like that particular word search and they want to keep doing it, you can just download it as many times as you want. So we also have on our digital version, we narrate all of the features. And so if people want to read along and hear it, they can do that also. We also have it available digitally in Spanish, and we're really wanting to get that out. We'd love to do a print version of that. That's a big goal of mine in 2023, is to have it available for Spanish speakers in print and digitally, and any other language. Tave would say we want it in all the languages, so I'll say that for her.
That's awesome. I mean, fabulous that you're already starting out though, having it in a different language to begin with. I mean, with the digital version, and I think that's really, really generous of Mirador to offer volume 1, for a sneak peek. And I did put the website in the comments, and so I just want everybody to remember it's www.miradormagazine.com. Very easy to remember and recognize. And I think it's fascinating. I know you sent some copies to us at the office. We had a lovely view of them. I think they're fabulous magazines, something that many of our residents, our clients, our family members would enjoy receiving and having an opportunity to read more on that, and to learn more about that.
Appreciate
Well,
that.
yeah, Nikki, any final words of wisdom?
I don't know about wisdom, but I do want to. I want to shout out again Tave Fashe Drake, our graphic designer Ty Juncker, for creating such a beautiful magazine. Tave also does some writing in it and some copy editing. But we've also gotten some great contributors. So Kathy Laurenhue from Wiser Now Wednesday is a contributor for us. She does our light news section. Judy Stock, who is part of Teepa Snow's Positive Approach to Care core team, who also has an Alzheimer's diagnosis. She's a contributing writer. It's really important for us to continue to get more voices from people that are actually experiencing this disease, people that can still contribute and want to contribute. So we really encourage folks that have any sort of cognitive impairment and want to contribute. We want to hear those voices in. So I want to shout out Judy, and I'm going to feel bad because I'm going to probably forget something I want to say. But I really appreciate you all taking the time to talk to us. And if you have any questions or you want to learn more, please feel free to email me. The contact information is on the website. It's miradormag@gmail.com, or give a call. It's just me, Tave, and Ty. We are the trio that does this. So you're not, it's a beautiful office. It is not mine. My office at Mirador is, is a room in the house. It's just great. But you'll get me on the phone, and I love would really love to hear from people that have seen the magazine, particularly in your all's profession, how we can make this a better resource for everybody. And so we're totally willing and able to take those suggestions.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. Thank you so much for also honoring and valuing those that are living with cognitive deficits and including them in the publication process. I think that is just beautiful. So thank you so much for doing that. And that was beautiful, wise words of wisdom. So thank you for doing that. We
Sure.
appreciate that. Well, Nikki, it was a pleasure to visit with you today and to learn a little bit more about Mirador Magazine. I encourage each of you that are watching to check out Mirador Magazine. It's at miradormagazine.com. Easy enough to find and locate on the web, and learn more about how you can bring this beautiful crafted magazine into your communities or with your families that are living with dementia, or anybody that enjoys reading good quality content. And I will attest to that. It is beautiful content. And so we appreciate Nikki and everyone at the Mirador team for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you again. All right,
Right.
everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow with our final Nap News Now of the season. So we'll be back here at the same time, same place. We hope you will join us. All
Right.
right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.